Hello, welcome to my kitchen. I'm Judith. This morning we're going to get something new going. I'm going to do some salt beef. It's very similar or the same to corned beef. So it is a way to preserve your beef, and it is just a sandwich meat that many people love, or together with cabbage or sauerkraut. It's absolutely fabulous. So the first thing we want to do is get some water boiling. It's just coming up to a boil here. And then we're going to add the salt. So we want 2 liters of water, 200 grams of salt, and I am using kosher salt. You don't need to. It's not necessary really. And then 100 grams of brown sugar. So to 2 liters of water, 200 grams of salt, and half that of the brown sugar. So that's the preservative portion of it. Now we're going to add the flavoring. So I have half a tablespoon of allspice berries, a tablespoon of yellow mustard seeds, and half a tablespoon of peppercorns. And you can use red peppercorns or whatever you like. I just don't happen to have anything except black at hand. Then 1 very large bay leaf. And you can do any herbs you like. Bay, rosemary. I'm going with bay and thyme. So a good hunk of thyme, and that already smells fabulous. So we'll bring that to a boil. And then we have to let it cool, because we don't want to be pouring a hot liquid over our raw meat. And I have 1 pound of brisket, so we are going to put it in a plastic tub. And you want plastic or glass. You do not want to do this in a metal tub. And you want it to have a lid. And then it's going to go in the fridge for a week to 10 days. So as soon as we get this boiling, we will shut it off and let it cool. Our water is coming to a boil, and the reason for boiling it is you want to make sure your salt and sugar is completely dissolved. I mean, if you tried to do this with cold water or lukewarm water, the chances of things dissolving properly are not that great. So definitely make sure it comes to a boil and then cool it. Now for this recipe I have 1 pound of brisket. If you wanted to do 2 pounds, does not necessarily mean you have to double the amount of brine. All you need is enough to completely cover the meat. That will depend on your container and the shape of your brisket. And now we need to let it cool. Okay, our brine is now lukewarm. If you want to cool it quicker rather than just leaving it on the counter, you could put it in the refrigerator. That will take about an hour for it to cool down that way. So now we're going to set that over there. And we're going to get our brisket. And we're just going to place it in the tub there. And pour in our brine. And all our spices. Now, if yours does float, do place something on top of it, like a plate or a bowl or something, just to weigh it down. And they usually do float. This one is not, because it has soaked a little bit already. And then we are going to cover it and put it in the refrigerator for a week to 10 days. Our brisket has been in the brine for 10 days. This is its 10th day. So what we're going to do now is drain it and then fill the tub with clear, fresh, cold water and let it sit for 10 minutes. And then we're going to cook it. So now we have our brisket in clear, fresh, cold water, just to soak for 10 minutes to remove the excess salt before we cook it. So now we need a pan big enough to fit the brisket, and that we're just going to fill with cold water and put the brisket in. So once you've soaked the brisket, give it a good rinse under running cold water. Then place it in a pan with enough cold water to cover. Well, it doesn't quite cover, but that's okay, we're adding more. I'm going to add a large yellow onion, and I've cut it into about 1/6 because it was a really big onion. And I'm going to add a few just black peppercorns. Now if you like, you could use the red peppercorns if that's also what you used in your brine. Now it does cover, but I'm just going to add a little more water to make sure it's completely covered. Don't want anything sticking up above the water level. So I'm going to cover it, bring it up to a boil, then reduce the heat just to a simmer and let it cook for about 2.5 hours, and then we'll give it a check. Okay, it has been about 2 hours since we put this on to simmer. And yeah, it's not simmering now because I did have to turn it down because it was hitting a pretty good boil. So we want to see how tender it is. I'm actually feeling pretty good. I'm just going to cut a teeny piece off the end here. There we go. Right, we're going to turn it off now. So I'm going to take it out of the water and let it cool. Put it there. There we go. And that is absolutely beautiful. And when you slice it, it is going to be glorious. It's not as pink as inside as you would get with a commercial corned beef, but it would be it would be pinker if we had used the butcher's secret, whatever that's called. Unfortunately, I could not find any, but it is still beautiful in there. And now that we've cut it the proper way, and the taste is fabulous. Oh, that is wonderful. Now, if you wanted to store it in the cooking liquid. So just a Ziploc bag once everything's cold, and a little bit of the liquid just to keep it moist. So we are going to make a beautiful Reuben sandwich in a little bit. So I'm going to slice some of this beautiful beef. Let me find my carving knife. I'm just going to slice really, really thin. So I am going to make a Reuben sandwich. Just to get this. And let's get the rest of the sandwich going. I have some beautiful dark rye bread from a local bakery. You know, usually I make my own bread, but dark rye is not something I have mastered. We're gonna grill it, so we're gonna butter the outsides of both pieces and pop it into a hot non-stick skillet. We got our pan nice and hot. We have our rye bread buttered. We're gonna place it butter side down in the pan. One side is going to get Swiss cheese. And layers of our corned beef that we just made. Well, I say just made, it did take some time. 10 days basically to salt it and flavor it, and a couple hours to cook it today. The other side is going to get some sauerkraut. And this is my homemade sauerkraut. I will put a link to the video on the sauerkraut at the end here, at the end of this video. If you've never made your own sauerkraut, it is well worth the effort. And not only because you can flavor it how you like and not have to put up with the store-bought excessively vinegary stuff. So we're just going to let the bread brown, the cheese melt. And I know traditionally a Reuben has French dressing on it. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. Not one of my favorites, and it really doesn't need it. Now, I have seen recommendations for storing your corned beef in some of the cooking liquid to make sure it stays moist and doesn't dry out. Well, considering this isn't a whole lot of corned beef and it's not going to take long to use it up, I don't think that's quite necessary. I am just going to wrap it in some plastic wrap, make sure it's sealed well, and put it in the refrigerator. Because there really isn't enough there to worry about it. I will be using it fairly quickly. It should not dry out. But if you needed to, a Ziploc bag, some of the cooking liquid, not a whole lot, just enough to keep it moist, and pop it in the fridge. And it should last for some time. One thing I do like, rather than the French dressing, is a little bit of mustard. And you can take your pick, either some Dijon or some English mustard. So I have a choice here, and I'm trying to decide which one I want. I think today I'm going to go with the Dijon. There we go. Check and see if our cheese is all melty and lovely. See if we can get in here and check our bread. Okay. Turn that off. Now that we got it on the plate, let's give it a cut. So you can see what it looks like. And that is a beautiful, beautiful sandwich. It is going to taste so wonderful. I can't wait to eat it. Thank you so much for watching. This is my homemade corned beef. And at the end of it, we did the Reuben sandwich. Or my version of a Reuben sandwich. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe, hit that bell icon, and you get a notification when I put up a new video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back soon with a new recipe.